Wekelea note 100, note 200, alafu tutakuitisha shilingi 40 peke yake, 40 bob only. Weka pin yako, utakuwa umekelea bid ya hii Nissan Note. Inakungoja wewe mahali popote ulipo. Mimi na mtumishi tutakupea.
Waiting on the wings, Kenyans are waiting with bated breath tomorrow's decision by the government on whether to extend the curfew or to relax the COVID restrictions, coming at a time when the COVID numbers are on the rise. And the question is, which way will COVID restrictions take tomorrow? Good evening. This is Business Insight. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Also tonight on this bulletin, we shall be discussing the Kenyan dream. Are you aware of the Kenyan dream? Are you living the Kenyan dream? I'll be giving you more details about the Kenyan dream and how to live it. Well, as I said, this is Business Insight. We have this plus more right here on this bulletin. But first of all, let's get to have a look at the highlights first. The BBI journey. Joint Parliamentary Committees on Legal Affairs begin a public participation exercise amid varied views on the bill's content among stakeholders. COVID-19 headache. 829 people test positive for COVID-19 as the Teacher Service Commission rolls out vaccination drive in the teaching fraternity. Not a laughing matter. Comedian Omondi arrested over alleged unauthorized production and distribution of a video dubbed wife material. Welcome to this broadcast, and of course a reminder that after the 9 o'clock bulletin, we shall be having a look at the National Cereals and Produce Board. I shall be discussing these issues with the chairman actually. So you need to keep it right here. That is on Inside Government. But for now, let's get straight to the bulletin. Well, the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Legal Affairs has started collecting views on the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. Proponents of the bill, among them the Jubilee Party and ODM, represented their memoranda in support of the proposed constitutional review, urging Parliament and Kenyans to consider and pass the bill. And as Kelvin Washira reports, it appears that not everyone is rooting for the proposed amendment after the Law Society of Kenya presented its memorandum opposing the BBI.
Stakeholders have begun presenting their views on the ongoing push for constitutional review before the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Legal Affairs. The Kenya Boda Boda Association and Nairobi Mashinani Women Caucus held the proposal to increase county allocation, additional constituencies, and the introduction of Ward Development Fund as key development agenda.
Ninafurahia sana mambo ya PPI. Mimi naiunga mkono kwa sababu itafanya watoto wetu watatembea vizuri, watoto wetu watasoma, tutashikana mikono, tutakuwa na umoja, tutakuwa na amani, tutatembea popote Kenya. Kila mtu atajisikia ako huru kwenda mahali popote. Akitaka kununua mahali pale atafurahia, ataenda na aishi mahali pazuri na tukua kitu kimoja.
Clause 3, inserting an article 11A(d), require the state to promote an economic system that supports all and micro enterprises. This will facilitate support of our members' business and facilitate access to resources to enable our members afford better insurance covers, funds to buy their borders, repay their loans, etc. And you find that our members are low-income earners. We don't have much money. And for that also, we support.
The Law Society of Kenya, however, opposed the constitutional review process, saying the bill did not come to Parliament through a popular initiative, but rather what they termed as executive initiative.
That this bill not reach Parliament by way of a popular initiative for the reason that it does not conform with the procedure set out under Article 257 of the Constitution for a popular initiative. The bill is for all practical purposes an initiative of the executive, a process hitherto unknown under the Constitution.
So, first of all, I must disassociate myself as a member of Law Society from where I'm included in this memorandum. That's one. But the fact that they disagree and they say we should oppose, that liberty should be given to them. And I disagree entirely with a lot of the things that they've said in there.
The lawyers are opposed to the proposals, seeking to have Salaries and Remuneration Commission regulate the payments of lawyers who provide services to state agencies. The Jubilee and ODM party also sent Secretary Generals to defend their push for constitutional amendment. The two political parties whose leaders initiated the BBI process argued that the bill is constitutional since it was initiated by the two political players who control the majority of the votes. Sentiments echoed by the BBI Secretariat, which also presented its memorandum. The Joint Committee will continue with its public participation on Friday. Kevin Washira, Channel 1 News.
Well, Deputy President William Ruto has asked independent institutions in the country to stop engaging in partisan politics. Ruto says the government has invested heavily on institutions such as the National Police Service and the judiciary, and as such, they should not take instructions from political players.
Deputy President William Ruto was in Nakuru County attending the funeral service of Arthur Kinyanjui Kimani, the son of Bahati Member of Parliament Kimani Ngunjiri. Ruto using the platform to challenge independent institutions to remain apolitical.
We expect the IG to provide the leadership and the command that will ensure that we have a professional, independent police service that does not bend to political interests or partisan considerations.
Ruto was accompanied by a section of his political allies, added that it was the duty of the judiciary to stand firm and defend all other institutions.
We expect that the judiciary will stand up to be counted as an independent institution and not to listen to any lectures from any quarters.
Ningetaka nikumbushe viongozi wetu wa kiserikali that characteristics of a modern state, number one is the rule of law, number two is accountability through democracy, na ya mwisho is to have a strong state. And a strong state is an impartial state. Tuache kuigiza maneno ya serikali na polisi katika maneno ya siasa, kwa sababu hiyo ni kurudisha Kenya nyuma.
Meanwhile, aspirants of the Juja parliamentary seat on the Jubilee Party ticket are calling for fair nominations. The aspirants have warned the ruling party against imposing candidates on the residents.
Na mimi ningeuliza chama cha Jubilee wasikubali hata kidogo kuendorse ama kupeana direct nomination.
Wale watu wanataka kuleta mchezo Juja, tunawajua. Wanashidaga huko Jubilee Party. Hata wakati wa nomination tuliwapata huko tukienda kurudisha makaratasi. Juja will not be learned from Kiabu.
The Jubilee Party candidates have less than a week to conduct campaigns ahead of the primaries that are slated for Saturday, 20th of March, 2021.
Katuku amesoma.
Meanwhile, Maendeleo Chapchap party leader Alfred Mutua has called on residents of Machakos to vote for a senatorial candidate who will not reverse the gains made in development in the county.
Ndio watu hao wanaelewa tu siasa za kutukanana, siasa za kukanyagiana, siasa za vita na ghasia. Wakenya tunataka amani. Tunataka siasa za amani.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Safin Acheng Ouma.
Let's talk about COVID matters. And the Teachers Service Commission has launched the COVID-19 vaccination drive targeting teachers above 50 years in the first phase. The vaccination drive coincided with a similar drive by the Kenya Defence Forces soldiers at Kahawa Barracks in Nairobi. This comes as Denmark suspended the use of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine as a precaution after reports of a similar number of blood clots and one death.
The COVID-19 vaccination drive has officially been rolled out to the teaching fraternity, with TSC CEO Dr. Nancy Macharia being the first to receive the jab. Dr. Willis Ahwale says they will prioritize giving the vaccine to teachers above 50 years and those with underlying conditions in both public and private schools.
Overall, I want to assure teachers, everything is in place, the vaccine is safe, and this vaccine overall saves lives.
575 vaccination points have been identified in all counties.
The vaccination posts will be both in public, private facilities, including mission hospitals, including big private hospitals and clinics.
He also urged those with severe allergies to seek advice from healthcare workers before receiving the jab.
This vaccine and all the others, Pfizer and Moderna, they are yet to be registered for use in people 18 years of age and below, children. And not because it has a problem, it's because the research did not include them. But research is now ongoing, and once it's found to be safe, even children will then be vaccinated.
TSC CEO Dr. Nancy Macharia revealed 41 teachers and 3 secretariats have died owing to the virus.
The government has made the right decision to protect over 330,671 teachers working in public schools and 158,000 teachers working in private schools.
Representatives of Kenya Primary School Heads Association and the Kenya Secondary School Heads Associations, KNUT and KUPPET, termed the inoculation exercise timely. A similar script was repeated at Kahawa Barracks in Nairobi. Kenya Defence Forces, led by the Chief of Defence Forces General Robert Kiboshi, were vaccinated.
It's quite light, actually.
I therefore encourage all of us across the KDF to get this jab, beginning with the healthcare workers, followed by the rest of the KDF personnel and families, as per the priority listing that has been developed by the Director of Medical Services.
A similar exercise is ongoing in Nakuru and Laikipia. This comes as Denmark temporarily stopped the use of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine as a precaution. The Danish Health Authority said it was too early to say whether there was a link to the AstraZeneca vaccine and blood clots in some of those who received the jab. Austria earlier stopped using the batch of the drug, prompting the EU Medicine Agency to say there was no indication the vaccine caused blood clots. Beatrice Gatonyingetich, Channel 1 News.
Comedian Eric Omondi will spend the night in police cells for allegedly violating the provisions of the Films and Stage Play Act. The Kenya Film and Classification Board and officers from the DCI zeroed in on the comedian for producing and distributing unauthorized film content in a video dubbed wife material. He is expected to be arraigned in court.
The comedian, who has built a following through his comical acts aired on social media, has found himself on the wrong side of the law after officers from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations and KFCB officials descended on him for allegedly violating the law by producing and distributing content that had not been approved as per the law.
Today we have carried out an operation on a production that is being done by Omondi. It's known as Wife Material 2. And the production is being produced without complying to the law.
He is facing a barrage of charges, including filming without a license, distribution and exhibition of films without a certificate of approval, promoting public indecency, among others.
We received numerous complaints from the public concerning his particular program named Wife Material 2. In this program, we noted with concern that there were elements that were promoting pornography and nudity.
Omondi, along with his co-accused, are expected to have their day in court on Friday, 12th of March, to answer the charges. Kenya Film and Classification Board KFCB officials have expressed concerns on the content of the show, citing it was a danger to young children who are exposed to nudity and pornographic material.
But of particular concern is that these particular platforms are being accessed by our children who are at home, and they are taking this moral decency as a norm, and we are, as a board, concerned that exposing children to such particular materials and content at this particular level, we will not normalize that behavior.
One thing that we should know, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, those are public spaces, and the minute one takes their content to public space, then they will attract government regulation.
And the High Court has ruled in an application by activist Okia Omtata that the appointment to tribunals by the executive violates the Constitution. This is after Omtata went to court to challenge the procedure of appointing tribunals by the President and Cabinet Secretaries. The Parliament and the Office of the Attorney General have been advised to file an affidavit in 6 months on the progress made in correcting the constitutional anomaly.
In an application filed by activist Okia Omtata challenging the appointment of tribunals by the President and Cabinet Secretaries, the court has said it's unconstitutional. The court went further, ordering Parliament and Office of the Attorney General to file an affidavit in 6 months on progress made in correcting the situation. Elsewhere, a Milimani court has issued summons for Omar Lale and 6 others to testify in an inquest into the death of Tekra Mwigai. Omar Lale's name has been widely mentioned by witnesses. 33 more witnesses are expected to appear in court. Finally, the High Court has dismissed an application filed by Sarah Wairemo seeking to have her prosecution stopped. This is after Justice Macau said he had no jurisdiction to hear the application. Sarah, who is out on bail, is facing charges of allegedly killing her husband, Tob Cohen, 2 years ago. For Channel 1 News, I'm Sarafina Roby.
Well, let's talk about your kidney. And you have been urged to undergo regular kidney screening for early detection and treatment of kidney disease. Nephrologists advise that early detection of kidney ailments hold the key to affordable treatment and care.
The World Kidney Day has been commemorated amid calls on Kenyans to stay alive to the dangers posed by kidney ailments. Experts are urging Kenyans to normalize regular screening for early detection and treatment of kidney diseases.
Say you're 40 plus, you have obesity, you have a family history of chronic organ diseases, family history of high blood pressures, diabetes. Now you should alert yourself to you being at the risk. So when you look at the risk factors, the diseases come into picture early. But you wait for them, the symptoms to develop, then it is already late.
Kidney-related ailments have in the recent years been a major concern in the country.
Not only preventing the kidney disease, living well with kidney disease means that whatever is the stage of the disease, So to say, whatever the stage of any disease, so to say, we should be able to lead our lives.
Every year, many Kenyans travel to countries such as India to seek kidney transplants, a procedure that comes with its fair share of financial challenges.
It happened that Corona had kicked off with force. So raising funds from people was difficult because many people were being stopped from work, businesses were going down.
For healthier kidneys, experts are urging Kenyans to make healthy food choices, make physical activity part of a daily routine, manage diabetes, high blood pressure and heart diseases. Yusuf Farr, Channel 1 News.
Well, some good news on the fight against COVID-19, and Kenya has received a donation of 100,000 AstraZeneca vaccine from the Indian government. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe has allayed fears of the vaccine having any adverse effect on those who take it. Kagwe says Kenya is still conducting its independent test on the jab.
Some minutes before 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, the Indian air carrying donations of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines from India touched down at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. While receiving the 100,000 doses of the jab, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe said no Kenyan had so far experienced any severe side effects from the COVID-19 vaccine.
What they have done is suspended to carry out investigations to see whether there is a link between what they have seen, what they have observed, and the use of the vaccine itself. For us, we only have used it for about a week. We have not seen any adverse effects of any kind. And you know, it can be a bad batch. It can be based on the individuals themselves.
The CS, however, said Kenya was still conducting research on the safety of the vaccine.
So it's difficult for us to tell right now, but I'm sure very soon we will know exactly what is the case. Of course, we are also carrying out our own tests, continuous tests, and just like them, if there was an issue, we would also take the necessary steps. But
he further urged Kenyans to turn out in large numbers to receive the jab when the time comes. The use of the AstraZeneca vaccine has been suspended in countries such as Denmark and Iceland over reports of clots among those who had taken it pending further research. Meanwhile, Kenya has recorded a rise in the number of COVID-19 infections. In the latest figures released by the Ministry of Health, 829 people have tested positive for the disease. The Ministry of Health also says one more person has died from the disease. Nancy Okware, Channel 1 News.
And now we want to bring you some breaking news coming out of Nairobi Hospital, where former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and also the ODM leader Raila Odinga has tested positive for COVID-19. His personal doctor has confirmed, and this is consultant neurosurgeon David Oluoch. I repeat again, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and also the ODM leader has tested positive for COVID-19. This has been confirmed by his personal doctor as well as doctors at Nairobi Hospital. The report says, according to the doctors, he's in stable condition and doctors are watching over him to see how he's reacting to the medication. We'll keep you posted on more details as they come along our way. Over 30 families from Majengo slums in Nanyuki County were left homeless after their houses were razed down by a daylight inferno. Meanwhile, international organizations based in the county have vowed to work with the government to achieve the Big Four agenda by attracting investors. These plus more stories next in our county highlights.
Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Rachel Omamo, receiving credentials from 6 heads of international organizations in the country, urged them to work with the government in realizing the Big Four agenda. Omamo said the relationships with the international partners is key in attracting foreign investment in various sectors. Meanwhile, this is what was left following an inferno at Majengo slums in Nanyuki. Witnesses say smoke was emanating from one of the houses before the fire outbreak that razed down over 30 houses, destroying property of unknown value.
Kumechomeka, hakuna kitu hata. Niko na watoto wawili, lakini wako shule. Sina hata sijui nitaanzia wapi.
Meanwhile, Maendeleo ya Wanawake Women Organization has partnered with Equity Group Kenya to offer members loans to enable them acquire water tanks to encourage water harvesting.
We stand on economic empowerment, three social pillars, and we have a new constitution, new strategic plan up to 2024. And we realize this field of water can only be tackled by Maendeleo. Why? Because we have the numbers, we have the structures, we've gone around the country.
Elsewhere, Interior, Transport and Information Communication and Technology Cabinet Secretaries paid a courtesy visit to Njeri School in Morange County.
And boys, you have an opportunity of a lifetime to make your future. Listen to your parents, listen to your teachers, and focus on success in the work that you do here.
All of you also have a great chance and opportunity because you are starting with technology much earlier, and you will be able to make a very big difference.
And the Kenya Property Investor Association has loaded the Landlords and Tenants Bill 2021 by National Assembly Majority Leader Amos Kimunya, saying it will bring a solution to most disputes between landlords and tenants.
The issue of tenancy disputes staying in court or pending in court for 10 years is the only main thing that landlords fight tenants.
Finally, calls to abstain from retrogressive cultural practices dominated the ongoing Emanyata trainings in Narok County. Narok West Sub-County Chief Leader of Naikara Emanyata, Tino Olelinka, said the young men aged between 19 and 23 years old are being enlightened on the need to abandon retrogressive cultural practices such as female genital mutilation and early marriages that pull the community behind. Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Jackie Wambiru.
You're watching Channel 1 News Hour. Of course, we are coming to you live from Broadcasting House here in Nairobi. We wish to bring you some breaking news here coming out of Nairobi Hospital, where former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has tested positive for COVID-19, and he's proceeding on the mandatory quarantine period. If you can allow me, I'm going to read for you the letter from the Nairobi Hospital. This is from Dr. David Oluoch. He is a consultant neurosurgeon at the Nairobi Hospital. This is what the content of the letter says. Following my letter to of the 10th of March 2021, we have confirmed that the Right Honourable Raila Odinga has SARS-CoV-19. He is responding well to treatment. He is receiving at the Nairobi Hospital and remains upbeat. We are continuing to monitor his progress. And for further information, more details will definitely follow later on. There's also another letter here or a press release from Raila Odinga himself. It says, this evening, I received a briefing from the doctors who have conducted numerous and complicated tests on me for the last 2 days to arrive at an accurate diagnosis of my health status. While the tests were several, one important result which I have authorized the doctors to make public is that I have been found to have been exposed to COVID-19. Despite the fact that I feel strong and in good shape, after a few days in Nairobi Hospital, I have agreed with my doctors to undertake the mandatory quarantine. I take this opportunity to thank the medical personnel for days of very meticulous work they have done to arrive at the diagnosis. Finally, I wish to use this opportunity to emphasize to our people that COVID-19 is real. It is in our midst, and we need to observe all measures being put out by the government, scientists, and health personnel. I thank everyone for the good wishes. Right Honourable Raila Odinga. That is the latest statement coming out from Raila Odinga, who has just tested positive according to doctors' reports. Well, you're watching us live from Broadcasting House. We'll keep you posted on where this story goes next. But for now, a short break is well deserved. And we'll be back.
Fanya hivi, wewe teremuka tu chini. Hata watu wanangojea, unasema unione. Si ninakuona ndio huyu kucha. Kucha ninakuona.
Yoi.
Nimekuita mara ngapi Kate? This is the Nissan Note.
Hii ndio motoka.
Not that this is the Nissan Note we are giving out.
Na ni rahisi sana kuwekelea bid. Unaenda kwenye lipa na M-Pesa. Unaweka paybill number 4032353. Kisha unakelea account number ya Nissan Note ni Note, N-O-T-E. Namba ambayo unapenda, labda unapenda 100, labda unapenda 200. Wekelea Note 100, Note 200. Alafu tutakuitisha shilingi 40 peke yake, 40 bob only. Weka pin yako, utakuwa umekelea bid ya hii Nissan Note. Inakungoja wewe mahali popote ulipo. Mimi na mtumishi tutakupea.
Next on.
Ingia. Kwa gari imejaa nini na wewe una gari yako, una hata baskeli unaanza complain. Songa huko, kalia huyo. Kuja.
Yaani nimekuandika wewe, nimekupa wewe lift unacha watu wote wale.
Wewe kwenda gari gani hii? Kwanza mkebe.
Sasa nikuulize madhe, kama una gari, si wachonyo wako na gari wa park.
Hii nao ni gari unanambia? Unanambia bari ya mkebe?
Mkebe hapa.
Na benzi itaitwa nini?
Toka huko. Tuacha kwanza. Unampiga nini msuko wangu? Anakalia gari yangu kwa nini? Kwa nini anakalia gari yangu? Niongea na mdomo kwa nini? Wewe.
Mbona tupende achana na huyu mzee?
Nyinyi ambao mna tabia kama hizo, huo ni ungwana kweli?
Tumesema wananchi wapewe maji bure, hata ndururu hakuna kulipa.
Wakati COVID iliingia ilikuwa tunanunua maji 20 bob.
Sometimes unapata unataka kupika, maji haiko.
Tunachota maji hapa karibu, atulipii.
Hii tank ina uwezo ya kuzabaza maji up to 1 kilometer radius bila kutumia nguvu ya pampu nyingine kielekea kwa wananchi.
Maji tumeweza kusambaza kwa mashule, mahospitali, vijiji.
Now with 193 boreholes, most of the disadvantaged and informal settlements have sufficient water.
Welcome back. You're watching Business Insight live from Broadcasting House. And of course, we continue to update you on some breaking news where former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has just tested positive for COVID-19. Doctors are saying that he's in stable condition, but they will continue to monitor his condition. And thus, he's proceeding on a 14-day quarantine. So we'll keep you posted on that. Let's move on. Ahead of the 2021-2022 budget, tax experts at PricewaterhouseCoopers are proposing a reduction of the minimum tax rate as well as the revision of the tax base from gross turnover to an alternative base such as pre-tax profit to enhance Kenya's attractiveness as an investment hub in sub-Saharan Africa. PricewaterhouseCoopers argue these will reduce the strain on startups and financially constrained entities.
Tax experts at PricewaterhouseCoopers say the introduction of a minimum business income tax of 1% in Kenya in January this year could have a devastating impact on the innovation sector, where a majority of businesses are startups. Ahead of the 2021-2022 budget to be read in June and the Finance Bill 2021, the tax experts have proposed that the government considers the design and purpose of minimum tax and other recently introduced tax measures to find a balance between the impact of these levies on businesses and the objective of increasing tax collections. PricewaterhouseCoopers notes that even though the concept of minimum tax is not unique to Kenya, other countries that have the levy have incorporated clauses to address certain business concerns on such tax. The tax experts are calling on Kenyan businesses to familiarize themselves with the minimum tax and comply with its provisions to avoid costly penalties due to non-compliance. They are also calling on tax policy makers to avoid ambiguity when drafting levies, noting that some taxpayers have faced challenges in understanding the minimum tax. They are also calling for amendments to ensure the minimum tax is easily adopted with minimal adverse impact to businesses. Regina Manyara reporting for Channel 1 Business.
Elsewhere, the government is in the process of sinking or rehabilitating 129,000 water ponds by the end of the year 2022 that are expected to help put 525,000 acres of land under irrigation. The water ponds are to harvest rain runoff water to support irrigation. Steve Miner highlights how farmers in semi-arid areas are reaping from some of the already constructed water ponds.
In Kenya, the growth of the economy is highly correlated to support and development to agriculture. However, food production continues to be hampered by unreliable and erratic rainfall that is relied on by most small-scale farmers. Meet Ann Wairimo, a small-scale farmer in Sipili, Laikipia County. She sings while attending to the crops on her farm. The song is a reflection of the joy in her heart as she anticipates a bountiful harvest. A few years ago, Wairimo relied on erratic rains to grow crops.
Wakati nilikuwa ninaona watu wakilima nyanya, wakilima mboga, madharo, na wakati huo hapa kulikuwa na kiangazi kingi. Nilikuwa tu nasikia tu kama ningekuwa na maji, hata nami ningeweza lima kama hawa wengine.
But thanks to the rainwater harnessing project by the National Irrigation Authority, Wairimo is now leveraging on efficient and sustainable methods of irrigation to increase yields.
Kama ningekuwa na shimo kama ile, sijui kama ningekuwa hapo ningekuwa nimepanda gasi ingine.
The water ponds target to empower farmers in water-scarce regions who, in the past, have had poor harvests, leading to severe food shortages and reliance on relief food.
Nililima mishiri season 3. Ikanipatia shilingi 130. Sasa niliamua nibadilishe nione kama kuna mabadiliko.
Through the water ponds, runoff water is harvested during the rainy season and stored to support irrigation. In Omondi, Laikipia County, farmers have embraced commercial farming powered by the water ponds.
Si water pan ndio ile. Sasa you can see niko na viazi, niko na mahindi, niko na mboga, sidio, na niko na minji pale.
In Meru County, farmers want larger water ponds to help them put more land under irrigation.
Niko na mipango ya kulima sana. Nipeleke hii shamba mpaka ifike pale kwa barabara. Ili hii shamba yote iwe iko na chakula, mahindi, maharagwe, kuna mali, chakula yoyote ya aina.
We've gone to farmers where we've excavated a second or even a third one, and they're using all this water to supplement their production activities.
Oh yeah oh. Oh yeah oh.
In Isiolo County, the water ponds is supporting livestock farmers water their herds as well as grow pasture.
Tuko na maji mingi, hata ukame ambayo ya mwezi 6 hivi, hii maji haitaisha.
Farmers in Nyeri and Baringo say the water ponds have empowered them to improve the quality and the quantity of farm produce.
Hii maji sasa imeniinua kiasi ambacho
ninaona nina kitu yangu.
Naona inabadilisha maisha ya watu wa hii area sana, sababu huku kwetu ni maeneo ambayo ni ya jua sana, lakini mapato ya ama chakula ikipata maji inakuwa vizuri.
The water pans project, being undertaken by the National Irrigation Authority, targets to put 525 acres under irrigation.
Remember, the farmer is providing their own land for us to excavate an eighth or a quarter of an acre, depending on the size of the water pan. So the farmer signs these forms from the chief's office and confirms that they have land available that we can use to excavate the water pan. But upon excavating the water pan, the farmer also confirms that they will use this water for food production.
Sinking a water pan costs 150 shillings per cubic meter.
Tunapiga sasa maji kwa ile viasi, mnaona. Hizi tumboga mnaona hapa, naye unaona iko tayari kukua. Sasa njaa, ile inaitwa njaa, hatuwezi shikwa na njaa.
Reporting for Channel 1 Business, my name is Steve Maina.
Well, the government has called on the private sector to implement women empowerment policies at the workplace, business strategies and practice. Public Service and Gender Affairs Cabinet Secretary Professor Margaret Corbia says mainstreaming gender equality betters business performance due to a diversified workplace.
A 2015 report by the Africa Development Bank showed that Kenya had the highest percentage of women in boards of listed companies in Africa at 19.8%, followed by Ghana at 17.7% and South Africa at 17.4%. The Kenya Institute of Management placed the number at 21% in 2017, up from 12% in 2012. Even though this has been lauded, shareholders of listed companies have been challenged to elect more women to boards.
Knowing that some positions are not actually exclusive for men. I mean, historically, if you look at board compositions, women were basically maybe in HR, directors, legal, what you consider the soft side of business. But I think it's about time that they recognize that even taking up these other tasks are important.
As a call to action, I urge NSC to continue leading and encouraging listed companies to create a supportive work environment that would develop and increase female representation in the leadership positions.
The Ministry of Gender Affairs says that even though women make 43% of the workforce in Kenya, 10% of companies have gender balance in senior management, while 10% of the companies have gender balance in their boards, indicating that Kenya still has a long way to go to achieve gender equality.
Generally, evidence shows a correlation between companies' diversity in leadership and its financial performance, with women cited as exceptional leaders able to boost decision-making.
They were speaking during the Ring the Bell for Gender Equality Virtual Forum organized by the Global Compact Network Kenya in partnership with the Nairobi Securities Exchange, UN Women Kenya and International Finance Corporation, held in commemoration of the International Women's Day. Alan Aoko, Channel 1 Business.
Let's talk about COVID matters. The hospitality and travel industry was perhaps the most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, which saw countries temporarily closing their borders, limiting travel. Tourism and Wildlife Chief Administrative Secretary Joseph Boynet says COVID-19 restrictions saw tourist arrivals in Kenya reduced by 80% in 2020. A year after Kenya confirmed the first case of COVID-19, Irene Muchuma reflects on the event that shaped the last 12 months with a focus on the tourism and travel industry.
On 13th of March 2020, Kenya confirmed the first case of coronavirus. This would be followed by health recommendations aimed at containing the spread of the deadly flu. This comprised social distancing in public spaces, wearing of masks, sanitizing, avoiding handshakes and hugs, as well as curfews. Perhaps it was the imposition of curfews barring traveling into and outside key tourist hotspots of Nairobi, Mombasa, Kwale and Kilifi by road, sea and air that hurt the tourism and travel industry.
When it started, it came like rain. And then ending, we were not seeing any light in the tunnel, because as we even speak right now, we thought it's ending, but now they start saying there's a third wave. Even when the second wave came, we didn't know. So when they mentioned third wave, it became a problem. So it is a really tricky journey, because number one, most of the hotels rely on foreigners. They are not coming, they are on lockdown.
The announcement saw hospitality facilities, travel and tour companies, as well as airlines and allied businesses temporarily closing, sending home thousands of workers and slashed salaries for those who were retained in the 5 months between March and August 2020. It is estimated 2.5 million Kenyans in the travel and tourism industry were affected by either reduced salaries or job losses.
What other thing that came to hit the staff was now they are at home and they don't have food. And they don't have salaries, because, you know, if there are no guests, there's no salary. So it was a bit tricky, but what we did is between April up to June, everybody stayed at home. So what we did was we tried to sustain our staffs by giving them foodstuffs and all, and giving them money to pay rent, and that's what we did at that point, because everybody was at home.
Thanks to easing of travel restrictions in the last 6 months of last year, some hotels that had closed reopened, which saw some of those who had been laid off being recalled back to work. The period between February and June 2020 was the hardest for the tourism and travel industry, as travel restrictions imposed by tourism source markets, as well as here in Kenya, drastically cut arrivals. Despite lifting of travel restrictions in July in most countries, tourist arrivals took a thorough beating. According to the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife, international arrivals witnessed an 81.3% reduction in 2020. Local tourism and travel industry players heavily relied on domestic tourism, which also suffered a 64% reduction to remain afloat. Thanks to the East African Community Market Protocols and Trade, regional arrivals registered a modest 38% reduction, which, coupled with the local traveller, offset the huge dip in arrivals from key source markets. To help fast-track the recovery process, the government announced stimulus programs that included 3 billion shillings loan to the tourism industry, 1 billion shillings for engaging 5,500 community scouts under the Kenya Wildlife Service, and another 1 billion shillings for supporting 160 community conservancies.
This ministry is committed to supporting both the tourism and the wildlife departments, including the private sector, in carrying forth not only the mandate of this ministry, but in making their contribution towards nation building.
With drastically reduced international arrivals, the hospitality industry turned the focus to the local traveller. Facilities have since July been offering discounted rates for bookings as they strived to stimulate travel and keep the industry afloat. Even today, social media and other media platforms are awash with special travel and leisure offers from hotels and airlines.
Those who are doing very well is 50%, those one is like 100%. In fact, I would say COVID brought social distancing, which was said half of what we used to do. So even in revenues, we are doing half of what we used to do. But we thank God, because we must say, since we are still on, we must thank God. There are others who have closed down.
Irene Mchuma Odim, Channel 1.
Well, let's hope that the sector will continue to recover as we move forward. Coconut and cashew nut have been gazetted as cash crops, paving way for the largely coastal crop to receive research and marketing funds to improve production and earnings. Legislators, while debating the Crops Amendment Bill 2019, say the move will rejuvenate the coastal economy.
Coconut earns Kenya about 12 billion shillings annually, contributing an estimated 1.5% to the agricultural production and 0.4% to Kenya's GDP. Efforts to improve the crop's value chain have received a boost after Parliament recommended that the produce be included in the list of cash crops.
These two crops are now finding place for growth in other parts of the country. We have seen parts of Meruk growing cashew nut. We are seeing even coconut being grown. We are seeing, some other organizations coming into the country and want to trade in coconut and cashew nut. But because of the fact that they are not in the first part, these investors that are coming in the country are not getting due attention as they ought to be.
This will increase marketing and research capabilities directed towards its production.
This is a multi-billion. Tanzania today is growing leaps and bounds because of these two crops. But here in Kenya, this crops is going down, and the whole economy is sinking.
Coconut and cashew nuts are the mainstay of the coastal people, especially in the coastal strip. This has really helped the coastal people, but because it's not recognized, they are not getting full value of these crops in their areas.
Cashew nuts were also upgraded in the same Crops Amendment Bill 2019, which legislators say will be instrumental in jolting the economy of areas where the crop is grown. The coconut industry is perceived as a sleeping giant, with the government saying it has potential to inject over 25 billion shillings into the economy annually. Betty Kiptum, Channel 1 Business.
Well, you're watching Channel 1 Business Insight, of course, live from Broadcasting House. And we are tracking some breaking news coming out of Nairobi Hospital, where ODM leader and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has just tested positive for COVID-19. According to doctors, they are monitoring his situation. He is stable, but he will proceed on a quarantine period. So that is the information that we are keeping our eyes on. We'll give you more information as it comes through. Time now to take us to the next break of the bulletin. We'll be back shortly, and our discussion is coming up next. Stay right here.
Ili kupata skiza tune hii kwa simu yako, bonyeza alama ya nyota 811 alama ya nyota 962 alama ya reli.
Aya. Unanipigia na reverse call. Unajua ile kitu naweza reverse peke yake. Ni Land Rover nikiendea wahalifu mahali wako. Ndio wakucha wameingia kwa Land Rover chup. Lakini wewe kunipigia reverse call. Why are you defrauding the government? No. Look for the airtime and call me. Okay? Ukipiga na reverse call, hata mimi sita reverse. Unasikia? Tusisoyane bwana.
Ukitaka kupata skiza tune hii, bonyeza alama ya nyota 811 alama ya nyota 962 alama ya reli. Nyota 811 alama ya nyota 962 alama ya reli.
Like this. Promise me you can keep a secret. I'll not breathe a word. What is it?
Looks like a motor horse. They're not supposed to be real.
His name's Crusoe. He's very friendly.
Kirsty, Angus. What are you doing in there?
It's some creature with horns.
Crusoe? How'd you grow so fast?
On the next episode of
Na wewe kidudu mtu hapo. Umesikia mimi radio? Kila atakayekuja hapa muulize Aisha, muulize ni Aisha. Haya basi, unikome.
Nimechoka kunyanyaswa.
Na kuona ushaanza kumea pembe.
Sitokubali mimi tena. Kuwa mpole nini? Leo ndio wanitambua mimi nilikuwa mumeo, si ndio?
Mume wangu ni shetani tu aliniingia.
Shetani gani?
Right. Are you familiar with the Kenyan dream? Well, let me even ask you this. Are you living the Kenyan dream? Well, it goes like this. Go to a good school, get a good job, acquire the latest car, buy a house or build one in a swanky suburb, fly out for a holiday once every year, and hang up the gloves on the slopes of Mount Kenya or along the white sandy beaches of the Kenyan coastline. But why is it too expensive to acquire a house in Kenya? I posed this question to George Mboro. He's a real estate expert and also the managing director of Mizizi Homes Africa. And he gave me the following response during our area engagement. Listen. Owning a home in Kenya is considered to be a dream come true for many people. But of course, we all know the challenges, that come with these, from high cost of lending to high cost of material, as well as, collateral that is demanded by lending institutions. There has been concerted efforts by both the private and the public sector to try and bring this down in a bid to make housing affordable. Well, joining us to discuss this issue plus more is George Mboro. He is the managing director of Mizizi Africa Homes. Thank you very much indeed, George, for joining us here. Thank you. Help us understand this. Why is it, first of all, very hard to own a house in Kenya or a home in Kenya?
Yeah, thank you very much. And as you have correctly said, the interest rates when you are being given a loan, and other factors, cost of land, cost of construction materials, and having the time to oversee construction. These are some of the hindrances that people have experienced. People who have the desires to own homes, you find that you want to have a home which is affordable, but you do the calculation, you buy land, you buy materials, they oversee the construction, and the loan, you pay interest. At the end of the day, something that you would have used very little money, you find you have used more than 3 times the amount of money you had initially planned for or budgeted for. Yeah, so those factors really affect the cost of houses. And it's a challenge because everybody needs to have shelter, because in the 3 basic needs we have food, we have clothing, and we have shelter, and shelter is basically houses. So it is something that is a basic need. But because of the constraints that I have put across, and of course others, you find that it is not as easy as maybe we would have wanted. Yeah.
You see, when you look at home ownership, especially in the urban areas in Kenya, I mean, it currently stands at about 24% of the urban population. This, of course, does not compare good with South Africa, whereby, this rate would be about 54-55%. And we have seen a lot of efforts, being put by the government to try and suppress the cost of owning a house in this country. Are you convinced that the measures that the government is putting in place will, in the long run, bring down the cost of houses?
Yeah, thank you very much. As you have said, according to the statistics, houses are needed in big numbers, because currently we have a deficit of 2 million houses in the urban areas, and every year, because of the increase in population, there's 200,000 more houses that are needed.
That are needed every year?
Every year. So the deficit...
And this is on top of the 2 million deficit?
Yeah, on top of the 2 million. So the deficit continues to increase as the population grows, and as people move from the rural areas and they migrate to the urban areas to look for greener pastures, to look for jobs. So there is need, and we want to congratulate the government, because one thing with the big agenda 4, one of the big 4 agendas, being housing, it has brought affordability of houses as a topic, and now people are talking about affordable houses, because the government has seen that it is something that needs to be looked at, and it's a problem that needs a solution, and that is why we have seen the government involving itself in encouraging, like structuring of mortgage. You hear that you can be given a mortgage, and they're also reducing the interest 7%. People being given pension 40% even before they go into retirement. We have seen the government actively getting involved in giving out of titles. We have seen the government being involved in the affordable housing and actually constructing. And all these efforts are to try and ensure that the deficit that we have as a country is covered. So I would say that the effort is good, because now this is a topic that people are talking about and the government is also supporting. But we would also urge the government even to work even more, especially to encourage the private developers, because the government on its own, with all the other job that it is doing, it's not possible to cover the deficit on its own. The affordable housing agenda, affordable housing by the government, it's good, but it's not enough because the deficit is so big. And even the government had said it would do 500 units. You see, out of the 2 million deficit that we have already, there's also already a shortfall of 1.5, and the deficit continues to increase. So the government, what I would urge the government to do is to also empower the private developers. There are people like us, Mrs. Africa Homes Limited, and we understand the problem that is there.
And how will they be empowered?
Yeah, it's very easy, because when the government supports an initiative, it's very highly likely that the wananchi will also take it up, because it's like a policy which the government is encouraging. So, for example, if the government can say, we are supporting Mrs. Africa Homes Limited with what it is doing, and we encourage it to continue, and maybe they can go the extra mile. You know, the government owns land, the biggest land, and for us, like Mrs. Africa Homes Limited, one of our biggest cost is acquiring land. So if we can be given that land, and we actually will pay later, and also at a subsidized price, and we are given all the other necessary approvals by the government, we are supported. I'm sure we would, if now we are doing 100 units per month, we would be in a position to do even 1,000 and even more, because all we need is to increase the workforce and build on our capacity.
And let's for a moment imagine that the government has provided land for private sector to put up affordable homes. A unit that currently goes for about 4.5 to 5 million shillings will come down by what margin?
The cost of land takes for about 30%. So if you are to remove 30% of the cost of that unit, so if you are working with 4.5, if you do 30% of that, you'll find that it's roughly maybe around 1 million, 1.5. So if you remove that one, the house will come to, if at all you are not going to pay for that land, it will come to 3 million. If you are going to pay for that land at a subsidized price, let's say 500, then you will reduce it to 3.5.
3.5. And of course, that is a substantial reduction in terms of cost. You were talking about government venturing into the affordable housing space, and we know there are multiple projects that are currently undergoing. And one of them is the Park Road affordable housing project here in Nairobi, whereby a 3-bedroom unit is going for about 3 million shillings, and a 2-bedroom unit about 2.5. In a country where less than 100,000 people earn above $1 million bob, can this be classified as affordable?
You will find that what happens in economics, if you cater for the need of maybe a certain class, automatically by default you will also cater for the other problem. I'll give you an example. If people who can afford the 3.5, you have said, or 2.5, and they get those houses, you will find that those are the people who are living in the suburb of Nairobi, the areas in Umoja, Donholm, and what have you. Those people now will stop paying the rent because now they have gotten their own homes. What will happen to the demand of the houses that they were renting? The demand will be less, isn't it? Because now, and there will be more supply. By default, there will be, the price will regulate itself. You'll find that a house that used to be paid 20,000 in Donholm will automatically come down to, let's say, 10,000. And what that means, somebody who was living, let's say, in Dandora, paying a house 10,000 will move to Donholm, isn't it? The same case will apply somebody who now is living in Dandora. The house they were paying 10,000 will come to 5,000. And somebody who was living in Korogosho in a Mabati area will move to, will upgrade.
So there will be multiplying effect.
Yeah, so the ripple effect is what matters. Because you may not remove the person who is living in the Mabati, maybe they pay 500 shillings per month to the houses. But when you create more supply, also price stabilizes.
Look, there is also an attempt by both the government and the lending institutions to try and push up the rate of mortgage uptake in this country, and we know for the longest time, taking up a mortgage in this country is quite an expensive undertaking because of the upfront deposit that you have to pay, which is about 30%. Is it 30% of the total amount? And of course, the collateral that is needed, plus the paperwork that you have to do in order to secure that facility. Are you convinced that what we are doing is the right thing? For example, establishing the Kenya refinancing mortgage company. Is that a step in the right direction?
That one is a good step. It's a good start, but that is not the end. Because like for us, Mrs. Africa Homes Limited, what we do, and actually what the government is doing is off-plan. And off-plan means that you are buying something that is at the design stage. It is not something that has been put up. So what we are doing, the government is collecting resources from the people to do the construction, and by the end of the day you get your house. The same case as we are doing. We are collecting customers' deposits to put them into construction. You get? And by doing that, we are cutting on cost. And now what the government is doing, the refinancing loans, is something good, but now they also need to look at the other part. Because when you look at the terms and conditions, they mostly look at a ready house, a complete house, because you will be told come with the title, come with everything, like we want to value the house. There are all those terms and conditions, which you find that with the mode of construction that we are doing, the government is doing, is not being catered by the refinanced mortgaging and the loans. So they also need to go the extra mile, reduce on the terms and conditions, the paperwork. Understand that this is somebody who wants to invest in an off-plan concept so that they get the house at almost the cost. They don't need to pay so much, because you find a ready house. That house is being sold, let's say, 7 million. The cost of that house is 3.5. So already the person who constructed, they are taking 3.5 as a profit, which is 100%. And that person who is being sold to 7 million will pay the extra 3.5, which is a return on investment of the person who had initially invested, and they will also pay the interest, the loan, the mortgage interest, the loan. So you find that the burden to that person is so high. So we need to look at the terms and conditions. Let us finance somebody who is also doing off-plan. And this can be done very easily, because when you are getting yourself, like for example, you come to us, Mrs. Africa Homes Limited, we have the terms and conditions that we also, like a contract, we get into a contract. The government can say that that contract is binding. If that person has been financed to come and buy that house, it's now upon you to make sure that you deliver that house. It is made mandatory. It's a mandate. You're mandated. This somebody has been facilitated to come and purchase your house at, let's say, Mrs. Africa Homes Limited. Now it's also upon you to deliver. This person has been financed. They understood that the house is not ready. The terms were somehow lenient. So also the developer or the government also make sure the person who is delivering, they deliver, and they also deliver on time.
Look, I mean, less than 10 years ago, the housing market was majorly dominated in what you would call the swanky suburbs of, the capital of Nairobi and Mombasa. And you're talking about, areas like Kileleshwa, Lavington and so much. But we have seen a concerted effort, even by the private sector, to try and move out of these areas too. to other areas, to the peri-urban areas of this republic. Is this somehow offering any relief to home buyers?
Yeah, you notice that when you look at the cost of land in the areas you have mentioned, like Leleshwa, Runda, Muthaiga, and for one, before you do the construction in those areas, they are so much regulated. There are some, you can't put up a height at all building. You find that the cost of land there is very high, because I think even the initial planning was to be an affluent area. It is an area whereby not so many people are needed. But you find that when now we are moving to the outer parts of town, for one, you find the cost of land there is friendly. It's not as expensive. You also find that in case you need to put up a building, let's say an apartment, you can be allowed to do that. So there are so many advantages, and by that you're able to help somebody who otherwise would not have managed to get that house. You find that in the earlier years, for somebody to dream of owning a home, you had to have a very big salary, or you have saved up to 10 million, or you can be given a loan of up to 10 million for you to imagine of owning a 3-bedroom house.
And so this is somehow, relieving the pressure of the capital city.
Yeah, it's a relief to the capital city, and it's a relief because now people can dream of owning a home even before you retire, before you make so much money, before you get a very huge salary. Yeah, so it's a relief.
And of course, I mean, as the old saying goes in Mo, where there are opportunities, there are challenges. Sure. We have also seen a mushrooming of real estate companies, that have fleeced very innocent people. They promise so much, they deliver nothing. This is somehow also eroding the confidence of buyers, into, the dream of owning a house. Yeah. How do we ensure that this kind of a problem is dealt with?
Yeah. So that is a very big problem, and so many people actually have gone into depression, because you find that some of our customers, they are people who have received pension, or they have been given loans, and you are servicing a loan, you expected to have a home, but you are not getting it. So you find that this is a need, that this is a serious challenge, and it can be addressed simply by ensuring that the contract that the customer and the developer get into is taken to be something very serious. And if it is maybe the courts, if it's the courts, you had entered into an agreement with the customer to deliver this and this house within this and this time. If you don't do that in the agreement, there are terms and conditions. Maybe there is a penalty. Return the money to the customer with some sort of interest, because maybe they are going to pay a loan. So return the money and also pay them an interest if you are unable, because in an agreement there are terms and conditions. If you don't meet the conditions, there are repercussions. Yeah, so the government needs to ensure that those contracts that the home buyers and the developers get into, they are taken to be something serious.
And honestly speaking, I mean, there are companies that are genuinely getting into genuine problems. Well, of course, they are the unscrupulous people who have taken advantage of this, people who want to buy homes. But we know of companies, that started, genuinely, and they have been in business, but because of one or two challenges, they got into difficulties of, even completing some of these units. What are some of these challenges, that are coming into the way of real estate developers that we are having an upsurge in number of unfinished projects?
You realize that some of the developers, there are people who are there in business, and their aim is to make profits and to have money. But sometimes you find that they do not understand very well that the money that the customers are paying is not their money. It is customer deposit. They are just doing the customer collection. They are collecting the deposit. And personally, I'm an accountant, and you understand that in accounting, you realize profit after you have completed the work. So those developers, they take the money, they assume that is their money, and that is customers' deposit. It's not their profit. The profit they will realize upon delivering of the project. So I think also some of these developers, they also need to, they are very good in marketing, they are very good in advertising, but they also need to go the extra mile and understand the economics, the accounting aspect. They understand very well. Yes, you have collected 10 million or 100 million. That money, you'll only realize your profit once you have completed the project and you have handed over to the home buyers. The difference that you get, that is your profit. Enjoy that money. Don't enjoy the money before you deliver. If they understand that concept, you'll hear no customers complaining. You'll hear no companies going down because of non-delivery.
And when you look at counties, I mean, they're also expected to be the drivers, the new drivers of the Kenyan economy. How comes we're not having, counties launching big housing projects, to alleviate the suffering of their constituents?
You will realize that counties, there has been the devolved functions, and we have counties, and it was passed in the 2010 constitution. But you realize that we have taken much time to appreciate the effects and the devolved functions of the counties, and you'll appreciate that even the devolved government, they are actually learning what they should do. They're also learning. So I should encourage even the counties. Let's not take so much time to appreciate devolved functions and the work that we need to do and to help and elevate some of our people from poverty. It's a call to the counties to now appreciate we have devolved government, we have devolved functions. Let's take up, like housing, let's encourage people to own houses, because owning a house is one of the things that will elevate poverty.
And also in a country whereby, there is a whole parastatal whose mandate is to help in the construction of houses in this country. How comes somehow they have taken, the backstage when the clarion call has been to ensure there is affordable housing, for Kenyans?
You will appreciate that one of the biggest problems we have with parastatals and with the actually government institutions is bureaucracy. And some of the people who get into those offices, they get there with very, very enthusiastic, with high expectations. But once they get there, they try, but they understand. They maybe are told, I don't know what happens. They are told not too fast. These are how things are done here. Slowly by slowly.
There's a lot of
bureaucracy
and bureaucracy.
Yeah, so they also they adopt to the new changes, and things continue as normal, the old way. Yeah, so nothing new happens. So the old way of no change, no new houses continues, which is very unfortunate. Yeah, because people who are coming in, they need to. There needs to be a change.
George, as we wind up our interview, if you were in a position to advise the government, or if you're in a position to drive policy change in this country, and how the whole system of housing is managed, what would you do differently?
Yeah, what I would do differently, I would first of all appreciate what the private sector is doing. And for one, because it is doing something, we, like Mrs. Africa Homes Limited being a good example, and also appreciate their challenges that have been there. And if we appreciate one, there's something positive, then we address the negatives. I'm sure we can be able to solve the problem of affordable housing. And we partner together, the government, the private sector, and the private sector that is doing well. How have they done it? We can tap, like for example, as Mrs. Africa Homes Limited, we are willing to lend what has led to our success. Where we need to be assisted, we also appreciate the assistance. Yeah, and by so doing, we will ensure that the problem of affordable housing is resolved once and for all.
Very well.
Yeah.
George, thank you so very much indeed for finding time to be with us and sharing with us your insights.
Thank you very much.
Ili kupata skiza tune hii kwa simu yako, bonyeza alama ya nyota 811 alama ya nyota 962 alama ya reli.
Aya. Unanipigia na reverse call. Unajua ile kitu naweza reverse peke yake. Ni Land Rover nikiendea wahalifu mahali wako. Ndio wakucha wameingia kwa Land Rover chup. Lakini wewe kunipigia reverse call. Why are you defrauding the government? No. Look for the airtime and call me. Okay? Ukipiga na reverse call, hata mimi sita reverse. Unasikia? Tusisoyane bwana.
Ukitaka kupata skiza tune hii, bonyeza alama ya nyota 811 alama ya nyota 962 alama ya reli. Nyota 811 alama ya nyota 962 alama ya reli.
Like this. Promise me you can keep a secret. I'll not breathe a word.
Looks like a motor horse. They're not supposed to be real.
His name's Crusoe. He's very friendly.
Percy, Angus. What are you doing in there?
It's some creature with horns.
Crusoe? How'd you grow so fast?
On the next episode of
Na wewe kidudu mtu hapo. Umesikia mimi radio? Kila atakayekuja hapa muulize Aisha, muulize ni Aisha. Haya basi, unikome.
Nimechoka kunyanyaswa.
Na kuona ushaanza kumea pembe.
Sitokubali mimi tena. Kuwa mpole nini? Leo ndio wanitambua mimi nilikuwa mumeo, si ndio?
Mme wangu ni shetani tu aliniingia.
Shetani gani?
Let's now talk about what's happening in the world of sports, where Wazito FC head coach Francis Kimani has been named the FKF Premier League January Coach of the Month. Kimani guided Wazito to 5 wins in as many matches to be crowned the best in the month, ahead of Tusker FC tactician Robert Matano, who came second. The former Tusker tactician becomes the second coach to claim the award this season after KCB's Zedekiah Otieno, who was named the best in December.
Wazito began the month well, patched 8th on the log with a paltry 5 points and finished with 20 points against their name and in the top 3 bracket. Matano, on the other hand, won 4 matches and shared the spoils once. Wazito started the year with a 2-1 win over Nairobi City Stars at Utalii grounds before seeing AFC Leopards off by a solitary goal at the same venue. Utalii proved to be a good hunting ground for Wazito as they came from a goal down to register a 2-1 win over Bidco United in their 3rd match of the month.
You are building the team, but at the same time we are also trying to to learn a lot together, in terms of the players, learning a lot from the technical bench, also to the technical bench, trying to pick a lot of positives from the players and see if we can build something. But all in all, it was something that we knew it will happen. We could see it. We were not very far because sometimes you also watch the other teams and they give your team a lot of motivation in terms of the development they have made. So we had made some steps Other teams had also made some steps, but more important is that we're also looking for a record that can build more confidence, in the process of our training.
The last two games of the month were moved to Kasarani, but they still maintain their winning streak. They defeated Nzoia Sugar 2-1 before ending the month with a hard-fought 1-0 win over Kakamega Homeboys. Kimani walked home with a personalized trophy and a 50,000 shillings token.
Elsewhere, Kenya Vision 2030 has today been named as the official sponsors of the 15 professional golfers set to participate in this year's edition of Magical Kenya Open. The tournament, which is part of the Elite European Tour, will be held from 18th to 21st of March this year at the Current Country Club.
The 2021 Magical Kenyan Open Golf Championship is expected to attract at least 156 golfers, with over 30 countries represented.
We came in this year to put a particular focus on our players, the golf pros themselves. They are the reason why this whole thing happens. And we want to encourage a culture of sponsorship of players, not just when they're at the top of their game, but through the development process.
The tournament, which is part of the Elite European Tour, will be held from 18th to 21st March 2021 at the Current Country Club in Nairobi.
So probably first I can say that this year is different, and why it is different is because we have COVID, and therefore there have been strict regulations that have been put in. And Vision 2030 coming on board, I think it is a big aid to the pros, because basically they are catering for all our expenses. And I think for you to be able to perform better, for our pros to be able to perform well, they need a sponsor. And I think Vision 2030 has done that. And I think this will ensure that we play well come Kenya Open and Savannah Classic.
The players will include 12 Kenyan pros, with Nigeria, Uganda and Zimbabwe being represented by a player each. Vision 2030 has chipped in to sponsor the 15 pros who will participate in the tournament, and an agreement was unveiled after a deal worth 3 million shillings and 50,000 shillings for each golfer to enable him during the preparations. Daniel Mwendwa reporting for KBC Channel 1.
Where Football Kenya Federation has inaugurated St. Peter's Mumia School as an FKF Centre of Excellence following the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the two parties. Under the MOU signed up until March 2026, FKF has committed to offering the school technical support, with the Federation's technical department helping design football programs for both the elite football team and other students in school, as well as training the school's coaching staff.
We've now signed with St. Peter's. Of course, as you know, we have signed with St. Anthony. The plan is to have at least 10. Of course, you'd appreciate that this also depends on school policies. But basically, it opens up this part of the country to kids at this age to be able to showcase their talent and develop that talent.
FKF runs a Premier League hybrid for the 8 centers that will come up. Is good for us. It gives us the opportunity to raise the bar of soccer and compete effectively. And out there, I want to encourage parents in the CBC that's to come, the competency-based curriculum. I think St. Peter's is the ground for our children.
On our to international sports news, where Manchester City returned to winning ways